Alright, we're going to talk about the M60 machine gun top covers, how to identify one cover from the other, the different types of covers that there are, and some of the different functions and improvements that we've seen over the years between these different variations. So we have 5 top covers laid out here. We have top cover for the standard M60. By standard, I mean the first generation of it, the Vietnam era M60 as I hear them called. Again, here we have another standard M60 top cover, same as the first. We have an M60e3 top cover. We have an M60e4 Mod O top cover. And we have an M60e4 Mod 1 top cover. And if you're not familiar with the M60, it's easy to look at these first 4 and say, well, they look the same to me. I don't see any differences, at least from the top. The M60e4 Mod O cover sticks out for obvious reasons. It's billet aluminum with a Picatinny rail on top. So before we flip these top covers over, let's talk about how to identify one top cover from the other. And this is particularly important because if you're out there looking for spares, you know, the E3, the E4, they're big improvements over the standard top covers. There's nothing wrong with the standard, but there's just improvements there. And you want to be able to easily identify an E3 or an E4 top cover when you're shopping around for these. So from the top point of view, from the exterior point of view, I want to say, how can we tell these apart? Well, if we look at our standard cover here, we want to focus on the top of this. All right, we're going to focus on the top, and we're going to focus on the right-hand side. So if we look at the top of this standard cover, we can see these bumps on the top, and that's just so to make room for our internals in here. But we want to note, you know, where they're at. And if we look at an E3 top cover in comparison to that, one characteristic which sticks out right away is this bump in the back. And that's just to make room for our E3 feed lever, and we'll get into that when we go into the differences. But if you see this on the top and you see this on the side, whereas if we look at our standard cover, we don't have that, and we don't have that bump, that means you're looking at an E3 or, in the rarer chance, an E4 Mod O cover. So those two characteristics are the easiest way to quickly tell what you're looking at. Other than that, it's the same as far as the exterior goes. We have a rubber cheek rest. Our latches are the same, and where it mounts to the trunnion is the same. So let's flip these over. This isn't even the same ballpark, but just for obvious reasons, if we look at our E4 top cover, there's no mistaking this except maybe with an E6. You know, we have a nice Picatinny rail on the top of it. It's very well made and heavy duty. So there's no mistaking this with a standard or an E3, obviously. I wouldn't think anyone would do that. So we're not going to focus too much on the exterior of that. So now we have these top covers flipped over, and we want to take a look at some of the differences on the inside, and we'll start obviously with our standard covers. So one thing cosmetically that we can tell if it's standard or E3 or E4 is we want to look at our feed cam, because this is just the most obvious part. If we look at our standard feed cam, we note that, you know, we have these circles down the feed cam, okay? And aside from that, that's just the obvious. There's lots of other differences, but that's just the obvious. When we look at our E3 feed cam in comparison to that, what we see is it's slotted. The two can't be confused, if you know what you're looking for. When we look at our E4, same thing, slotted. And our E4 Mod O, same thing, slotted, except this is nickel coated. So with this standard feed cam, that's just the most obvious that sticks out. But if we look at the back of our cover, we can see it's solid stamp steel. Okay, and that is in comparison to stamped steel, but we have cutouts all inside of this cover to reduce weight. We can see it all throughout to reduce weight. And it's a significantly lighter cover as a result of that. As far as functions go, let's talk about improvements. One of the problems we had with these standard covers is that GIs would close them on the bolt. They would bust up these feed cams. You cannot rack the bolt to the rear with this feed cam because basically when you pull it back, your actuator on your bolt is just smacking into this. So you had to rack the gun, lock the bolt to rear, then close your top cover, and then you're ready to fire. And how that was improved on the E3 was we have this feed cam here with this swoop in it. And again, to show you in comparison, we can clearly see the difference there. And what that is our actuator now, instead of running straight into this, it catches here, and you can rack this bolt while this is closed. It's just a good improvement. Another thing is these top covers. We said about GI slamming them down on top of the actuator, damaging the cam. What we have here is we have some play in this. This feed cam is spring-loaded underneath it where it mounts to the lever. And what that does is that gives us a good about a 1/4 inch of play. So if you do hit this down on anything, there's some give there and you're not bending or damaging anything. Standard cover also, because this feed cam is thicker than this stamped steel one, there has to be, the room has to go, be made up somewhere. So this feed lever is thinner inside of an E3 and an E4. Now an E3 feed lever, E3, E4, E6, all these feed levers are the same, but they're smaller, they're thinner in order to make room for this thicker feed cam. And those are the main improvements from the standard top cover to the E3 and the E4 top cover. And E3 top covers are very rare and hard to find, so if you see them out there, it's always a good idea to pick them up and have them as spares. They're only going up in value. Aside from those differences, these cartridge guides on the E3 and standard are the same. The feed pawls, these feed pawls on the standard and the E3 are the same as well. The only difference is this feed cam, feed lever, lever retaining spring. Again, feed cam, feed lever, and the retaining spring that holds our feed lever on. Those are the differences. As far as the internal goes, if you have standard cartridge guides and a feed pawl, then you can use those in an E3 or E4 cover. So now we have this set. Let's see if we can adjust the camera here. Okay, so we have this set next to our E4 Mod O cover. Now this is a very early E4 Mod O cover, and it does not have the nickel-plated feed cam, which is something that is an immediate telltale sign that it's a US Ordnance feed cam. But we can tell the difference. I mean, the covers themselves are almost virtually identical. There's two small things you want to look for in order to distinguish this, an E4 Mod O cover, from an E3 cover. And one thing is, if we look at the back of our feed cams here, we can see, if we look closely, this is more of a circle where this is an oval. I'm going to see if I can get in here and show you that up close. So again, you can see the difference in shape here. And that's how we can distinguish that this is a US Ordnance feed cam. Another thing that we can tell that it's a US Ordnance feed cam or top cover by is if we look inside this E3 cover, we can see this is a nice straight piece of the frame of this here. If we look in this E4 one, we can see that it's straight, but then it's kind of milled out some. And that's basically a relief for our feed lever to go to. So if you can see them close enough, straight, milled out, straight, milled out. And that's a telltale sign, again, that what you have is a E4 cover and not an E3. Again, this is an early E4, so there's no real way to see the difference other than those two things. But when we go on to our E4 Mod O cover, we can see they have a nickel-plated feed cam, and we also have a plated feed pawl. And a lot of that is US Ordnance and could distinguish their parts from other parts. There is some improvements we're going to go over, but that is one of the reasons they did that. You can tell these different covers apart, these different internals apart. Remember, there's a lot of stuff there was at one point in time floating out there, and you don't want it getting mixed up together. So some of the improvements that have been made in this E4 cover that we see from the E3 is there is more pulling power from these E4 covers. US Ordnance did an outstanding job testing these and comparing them to E3 and standards and making these improvements. And some of the things they did was this feed cam may not be visible to just the naked eye, but it's a few degrees sharper of an angle, and that's going to give you more pulling power when you are when your actuator's riding down this. The feed pawl is also greatly improved. We talk about in our other top cover videos that these feed pawls wear out. This nice hard feed pawl, they use different material here, and it just makes the life of it last a lot longer. So aside from the obvious, it's also a billet aluminum CNC top cover, and it really holds up well, and it looks nice on the gun, and it gives you the ability to mount an optic on here, which the E3 and standards and the E4 Mod 1 doesn't give you that option. The Mod 1, again, the E3 came out around 1986. It was used for a period of time. US Ordnance began in 1997, and they started making their products and working on improvements to this gun. The E4 Mod O cover is just, they offered two variations of it. They offered a railed top cover and they offered a non-railed top cover. So you have Mod O and Mod 1. So those are just some differences between these different top covers here and some things to look for. And just like anything with the M60, it's important to familiarize yourself and educate yourself on the different parts, especially because a lot of these guns you buy, they have different parts with them. And we want to be knowledgeable on everything that we have.